So, hello, my name is Brendan Zabolski, and I am one of the co-hosts of the Average Joe's Fishing Show. I am 26 years old. I was born and raised in Round Lake, Ontario, big city, population 100. And I have been living here for my whole life, other than when I was in school in Kingston. I've been in the valley since I was born, and I'm gonna die on the same 100 acres I was born and raised on. So right now we're sitting in the hunt camp, the family hunt camp. We've been on the same plot of land here for about 80 years now. Third generation on this piece of land. Round Lake is just outside of the camp here. Grown up here my whole life, fished a lot.
You did a lot of fishing out here.
I fished a few times, yeah, once or twice.
So what's your earliest fishing memory?
Ooh. My earliest fishing memory would have to be one of the bass that's sitting above my shoulder here on the wall. So I was about probably 5 years old, and I was fishing down in the rocks here with just a hook and a worm. I'd fish all day catching rock bass and sunfish, hundreds of rock bass. And I hooked into a nice smallmouth. It's about 4 pounds, and I was reeling it into the shore, and I got all excited, and I went to pull the fish out of the water. I grabbed the line instead of lifting with the rod, and the line snapped at the hook, and there was these 3 big boulders down at the lake that kind of create a pool when the water's low. And so this fish actually fell off into this pool of water in between the rocks, and I couldn't get it, and I was freaking out. So I ran all the way down the shoreline to my uncle's at the end of the family property. I was freaking out, hyperventilating, and so I asked him, I said, "Uncle Stan, can you get me a dip net?" I knew he had a net. So he got me a dip net, and I ran back, and the fish was still in the rocks where it fell off. So I got the net and I dip netted it, and I was pretty proud. I walked it over in the net to his house to show him, and I have a picture of me holding it in the net. The bass had a pretty good chunk bitten out of the side of him, but seeing as I was 5 years old and it was like 4 pound smallmouth, I brought it up to the house and I put it in the sink, and I wanted it to go on the wall, and it ended up going on the wall, and so it's a good memory. Probably my earliest really prominent fishing memory. That was my first big fish that I caught all on my own, so that was a very exciting time for me. This is my big bass I told you about. There it says
2004.
Bren Stan's net. July 2004. Bigger than any bass Lyle's ever caught when I was 4 years old.
Well, when I was that young, probably I'd be. You got a lot of family history. You did a lot of fishing growing up, so I'm sure you have some big influences. And what are a couple of the major fishing influences you've had in your life so far?
Oh, some of my major influences. So, similar to Lyle, my dad is definitely my number one fishing influence. He inspired me and instilled a passion for the outdoors into me, fishing and hunting. He loves trout fishing, brook trout fishing. He's caught some big trout in his life. Lots of fishing time in Algonquin Park. Dad, when he was a young lad, around here was known to be able to catch a fish in a dry well. He was a big fisherman. The amount of fish he has caught in his life, or by the time he was my age even, is probably more trophy fish than I'll ever catch in this area. They did really well back in the day. There's a lot of nice fish on the walls that are all fairly local. Secondly would probably be my older brother, Dustin. He's 13 years older than me, so when I was getting to the age where I was starting to fish, he was a big influence. He took me fishing a lot. We went bird hunting a lot and spent a lot of time together, and he showed me a lot of different techniques for fishing, and we still fish together all the time to this day. So
right there, that's deadly. There we go. What do we got?
What species? I don't know. It's not big, whatever.
Pike.
It's definitely not big.
Coming at you. Snake.
little one.
It's
Oh.
small. That's all that bites this thing.
Wait, I want to catch it. This one's only 6 pounds.
6 pounds, yeah. My older brother and my dad would be my 2 biggest influences for fishing.
So I'm sure growing up, you've got a lot of family-related fishing memories. So what are some of your favorite fishing memories that are family oriented?
Okay. I have a good memory from when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. I have a younger brother that's 2 years younger than me, and him and I and my mom and dad went up fishing in the park for speckles. We were fishing in a river, took the canoe up for the day. Dad was sitting in the back and mom was in the front, and Bryce and I were sitting on the floor of the canoe in the middle. We paddled quite a ways up the river, a few kilometers up the river. We got stopped by a cow moose that had just had twin calves, and the calves were literally like the size of my dog. They were about this long and about this high, real long little legs on them. And the cow came into the river in front of us, and she was aggressive because her young ones were there, and the hair was sticking up on her neck, and she was walking back and forth in the river. She didn't want us to go by. She was shitting in the river, and it was floating down, and there was all the speckled trout you could imagine right in front of her. They were jumping and eating the stuff off the top, the surface, and so we watched her for a little while. We watched the two calves jump into the river with her, and the one was real wobbly legged, like he just was getting up for the first time, still wet, and got up and he kind of fell into the river, and so anyways, we left them be. We weren't going to challenge her. We were about 50 feet away, which was probably already too close. So we turned around and we went back down the river. And just as we were about to get back to the truck, it started to downpour hard. It was like torrential downpour. And mom and dad, we were coming through these narrows, and they both let out a cast with a hook and a worm, and they hooked into like a two pounder and a 2.5 pounder in this river, which was the biggest fish I've ever seen out of it. Most of the time we're catching them like 10 inches long. And so they ended up getting these two huge trout right in the middle of a thunderstorm and rainstorm. And then we headed out, and it was pretty cool to see those big natural trout, and they hit right when it was pouring rain. Mom never fished with us a lot growing up, so that's a nice memory to have with her there as well. That was one thing, a real good family time where the four of us went out and enjoyed ourselves. So another time I was out with Dad, and I would have been 6 or 7 probably, and we were fishing a little back lake for bass and pike. I had put my rod down, and I had about 2 feet of line hanging below the canoe with just a hook and a worm on it, and I was fooling around, doing whatever, just being a little kid. And Dad was casting away, not looking, and all of a sudden he says, "Brandon, what the hell are you doing?" And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "You just hit me in the head with your rod." And I said, "No, I didn't. I didn't hit you with my rod. I'm not even holding it." And then he looks and, "Where's your rod?" I said, "It was sitting right there." "Well, it's not now." And then we look over, and you see about a 4 to 5 pound smallmouth clears the water, and 2 feet behind it, there comes the Zebco rod. Sploosh, sploosh, and the bass is jumping, and there goes the rod coming behind it. And so Dad started casting his little crawdad lure, trying to hook it, and he couldn't get it. So I've learned my lesson, clearly, as you saw in this video right here.
He grabbed at it right there. You see that?
Yeah. Cast back out there.
With my hook and worm. That was crazy. And it was at this point I knew I f***ed up. Oh, he took my rod! Holy
Took the rod.
right out of the boat!
I don't lose rods anymore. It's only happened twice now, and in about a 20-year span apart. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. I just didn't learn. I guess the most recent really memorable moment I have fishing was with my dad last spring. We were fishing a little stocked speckle lake that Dad could access easily because his mobility has gone down the last few years. He almost passed away the fall before, and so I was kind of worried at that time I was never going to make fishing memories with him again. So we got out the following spring and walked into this lake, and Dad sat on shore all day just on a little cushion on the ground right at the water's edge. And he casted just a hook and a minnow, a dead minnow, for about 2 or 3 hours. We fished from like 9 till 11, and Dad said the fish are going to bite around 11. That's normally a good time here. And sure enough, I started catching a couple little stalkers, and Dad just kept casting and real patient and slow fishing. And all of a sudden, he hooked into one, and he knew it was a big one, and I could tell it was a big one. It was pulling a little bit of drag, and
Big one. Oh, he's right here. Oh, that's a big fucker. That's a big speckle. That's a 2.5 pounder all day. Holy shit. Just right.
That's okay.
Wow. There's a speckle and a half. Holy shit.
Go that way now, I'll get up.
Holy. You got the trophy, I think, in the lake. That's a big speckle.
Did he eat it?
Oh yeah, he ate it.
Eh?
Up his friggin' arse.
Yeah.
It's in his throat.
Come on. Oh, almost zipped out. 2 pounds.
Friggin' right, that's a big speckle.
Nice color.
That's the one I almost put on the wall.
Put him in the bag anyway.
So that was really cool to see. Nice colored up big male, and Dad was excited. That was a very memorable trout between him and I. Like, I got to be there with him to see him catch that, so it's a good memory to look back on.
What is a fun fact about yourself that the average Joes may not know?
So, a fun fact that I want to tell you guys all about is that I have another alter ego. I am a musician. I've been playing music my whole life since I was 7 years old. Started on the fiddle, picked up guitar and singing in high school, and started playing a lot more publicly through college. And then since college, I do a lot of performances and gigs throughout the summers. And so I go by Brendan Michaels, and I've actually just put out a song today called Wishing I Was Fishing. And it's for anybody out there that hates being at work and loves going fishing, you're going to be able to relate to this song. So I wrote this song at work, got the words in my head, brought it home and put it to a guitar, and it's going to be on all streaming platforms, Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you listen to your music, you'll be able to find it. Wishing I Was Fishing by Brendan Michaels. So check that out, and hope you enjoy it.
Well, I'm wishing I was fishing, but I'm stuck at work. The money is good, but my boss is a jerk. Got Monday to Friday, I don't know if it's worth wishing I was fishing while I'm stuck at work.
So, what are some of your most memorable fish that you've caught over the years?
Well, my number one most memorable fish, I would say, is my 39-inch lake trout I got back in 2019, the year before we started the channel. We were jigging in 20 feet of water in the shack, and Dustin and we hadn't got a bite all day. It was really slow fishing, and so we were just packing up to leave. Dustin had all his stuff, and he was just starting the snowmobile, and I had left my helix in the hole till the end, and I looked at my fish finder, and there was a great big bar came in, the biggest mark I've ever seen on the helix. Came in, and it was sitting about a foot off bottom, so I said, oh, I gotta drop down. I was using a macho minnow, so I dropped it down and dropped it into the mud, and I thumped it about 5 times in the mud, and then I pulled it up about a foot, and I just felt it chomp, and then I set the hook, and zzz, it was just peel and drag, like craziest fight I've ever had. It was about a 20-minute fight, and back and forth, get it up to the hole, it would run, back to the hole, it would run, and I had a cheap little ugly stick rod and reel. That was the biggest lake trout I had ever caught. Super excited. It was tagged, and I called the M&R about the tag. I wanted to report the number on the tag, so I talked to the guy that had actually tagged the fish in 2006, and when he tagged it, the fish was 36 inches long. I caught it in 2019, 13 years later, and it was 39 inches. So that fish had only grown 3 inches over a span of 13 years. So I'm guessing it was probably a 45 to 50-year-old fish. It was on its way out. It was sick looking. It had a big head and green on the gills, but real skinny, like it wasn't a healthy fish. That was a fish of a lifetime for me, and that's probably my most memorable ice fishing story anyways. That was a big fish for me. It was exciting. Another one would be when Lyle and I went into the park last spring on a 5-day backcountry adventure to some new lakes. We day tripped into a bushwhack lake for speckles. We had never been to it, and we got in there and we were fished for a little while and couldn't get any bites. And all of a sudden, just a bite window turned on. Lyle caught a trout, and I had just had hooked on a little Cleo perch pattern
I got a little Cleo, 1/4 ounce perch pattern.
And it was the first time I ever put this spoon on, and I yeeted it out behind the canoe, and second it hit the water, oh, I got one. We got it to the canoe, and then Lyle was getting pretty excited. Oh, it's a big one. That's massive.
He's staying low. There he is. Ooh, yeah. Oh, that's a beauty. Nice one.
My PB in the park, natural, a 20.5-inch brookie, and we got a nice, quick, healthy release on it, and it was just awesome to see a big colored up male. He had a great big hook jaw, the big kype on him.
He's 20. Yeah, he's a 20. There you go. There's a 20-inch native Algonquin brook trout. Awesome. Look at that. We'll let him go here, right? Just like this, quick.
Yeah, he's got me.
And that was my most memorable park fish.
So what are some of your future fishing goals that you have set for yourself in the coming years?
Well, seeing as I like fishing Algonquin Park a lot, one of my goals for my life is to catch a 25-inch natural brookie out of Algonquin. It's just a matter of putting in the time and going in there and fishing for them. And so that's kind of long-term goal. I want to catch a monster in Algonquin and hopefully document it on film. That would be ideal. When I had worked in the park, I said I wanted to go to every lake in the park. That's kind of changed over the years now, and I'm setting it more to I want to hit every trout lake in the park. Every lake I know has either brook trout or lake trout, so I'm going to try and get to all those lakes, cross them off my map, and say I've fished every trout water in the park. That's a lifetime goal. It's going to take a long time to achieve, but that's a future fishing goal of mine.
So you do lots of trips in the park. So what would be your favorite memory with me in the park?
Ooh. Lyle and I have had a few good ones. In one of the first years we were fishing in the park together, we bushwhacked into a lake that I had never been to, and I had heard stories about my whole life growing up. Dad told me all about this lake that he used to fish, and they used to catch great big trout in it all the time from shore, and all the trout you could imagine, and big ones. And so anyways, I had been wanting to go in there for years, and Lyle and I, we decided we were going to hike in there and fish from shore in the spring. And so we traveled in the morning, and we got fishing, and we were just kind of poking around at a nice open pine point. We were cooking lunch or something, and we had our line set, and looked over, and oh, my line was gone. So I went over and I started reeling it up, and I noticed there was a dead tree that had fallen in the water right near where I casted, and my line was wrapped in the tree. I could see my bobber though was pumping under the water, and so I said to Lyle, I said, I think I got a fish on the line, but it's wrapped up and I can't get it. So anyways, Lyle rolled his pants up and up to about his knees and starts walking in the water, and he grabbed a hold of this tree and started pulling the whole tree up on the shore. And sure enough, at the end of it was, at that time, my PB speckle. It was a nice, great big female actually, and we never got a measurement on it or anything, but it was a really nice trout. So I was really happy that I had got into this lake that I'd heard about my whole life, and I finally crossed it off that I got a speckle trout in that lake, a natural brookie. So that was a really cool memory, and just the way that we got the fish, having it wrapped in the tree, and Lyle kind of getting a double assist on that one. You know,
You almost were gonna give up on it.
I was just gonna cut the line.
Yeah. There's a fish on it. Alright, last question for the average Joes. What is some advice that you have for a new angler?
I think if you're a new angler and you're just getting into the sport, you're getting into trying to do something similar to what we're doing, keep it simple. You can enjoy fishing and get out and do the majority of what you're looking for without having to spend a fortune on fishing. It can be very expensive, but you can go into fishing as a beginner with very basic gear. Get a few lures, get a cheap rod and reel combo, an ugly stick. There's so many different resources online that you can learn fishing from, including our channel. So keep it simple, start with the basics, gain your passion for it, and then look to upgrade as you go. So thank you for watching. I appreciate everybody wanting to get to know a little bit more about this average Joe. let us know what else you'd like to learn about us, and we'll be sure to add it into maybe the next video, or we'll hop on a live stream as Lyle said, and we'll just chat with you guys. Maybe have a couple beers and have a talk and talk fishing and whatever else you want to know about us. This was Getting to Know the Average Joe, Brendan, and thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and stay tuned. There's a lot of big things happening this spring. We're going to be on the trout in no time, so thanks for watching, everybody.
Wishing I was fishing while I'm stuck at work.